On PM Express tonight, a big conversation that has ensued over the last 48 hours since the president appointed 3 new members to the Electoral Commission. The questions around our constitutional desire to guarantee the EC's neutrality has come up, and civil society organizations have spoken in the wake of the appointments, but also the NDC in particular has voiced some concerns. We need to ask the question tonight: does the partisan affiliation of members of the Electoral Commission matter? We're asking this because it has come up before. Since Afarijan, post-Afarijan really, each of the commissioners that have been appointed, issues have been raised about suspected or sometimes overt partisan affiliations by the political parties and some of the members even, but particularly the appointments that were done and confirmed with the swearing in of the president of these individuals, by the president of these individuals a couple of days ago, for the first time in a long time, has brought in civil society organizations to the conversation who say it is time to take a second look at the mode of appointments. So let's get through to why this has become an issue now, because now it is not only speculation. People are now beginning to produce some evidence to suggest that at least one of the individuals appointed is overtly partisan. Well, these are the 3 members who were recently sworn in by the president to the Electoral Commission, and I'll go through each of them very shortly. Now, Dr. Peter Appiah is the key individual around which a controversy has revolved, because we now know from those who are close to him, from pictures we've seen, from videos that we've watched, and audio clips when he was, before now, very active in the New Patriotic Party in the Bono region, to be very specific. But if you look at his background, he definitely qualifies according to the Constitution, and also his background and work that he's done, because he used to be an assistant professor with over 10 years working experience in the computer science industry and academic institutions. He's currently the head of the Department of the Science and Informatics at the University of Energy and Natural Resources. And I must tell you, as part of our research, I have spoken to him before on PM Express in the heat of the pandemic, because he had done some research in that area. And we thought we should invite him then in that capacity as an expert who's done some research to share his thoughts in that area. So there is no doubt that academically he has a track record. The issue that has been raised is the establishment of the fact that he used to be a patron of TESCON at the University of Energy and Natural Resources. Now, the NDC in particular and CDD had made the point that that overt political affiliation and activism in the past raises fundamental questions, not necessarily constitutional questions, but questions about perception that it's very critical when you're going into an election with stakes that high, right? And so that it's been established. He's talking to multiple people who know him, and the videos that we've seen, he's merged as a TESCON. And TESCON, by the way, is the NPP's, the governing party's youth wing. You find them at the tertiary institutions across the country. Is the party's vehicle for mobilizing youthful student support for its political and partisan causes. And so he used to be a TESCON patron. And then this is a picture that I'm pretty sure, possibly if you follow this, you would have seen circulated by those who knew him and had worked with him, and sometimes even the NDC who wanted to prove the point. And this was in the early 2021, January. I'm saying January because what we did was to do a reverse search just to be sure that this picture is authentic. And we'll tell you, we also used it. We also use forensic analytical tools just to analyze. So we want to be sure that this has not been doctored. It hasn't been, because it was generated by NPP activists just after the party won a second term, when people were campaigning for party stalwarts and activists to be giving a hearing when it comes to the Bono regional minister considerations. And if you do a reverse search of this picture, you will find in January of 2021 a lot of MPP activists, particularly in the Bono region, who, had taken sides, as far as these 6 people are concerned. Some of them were campaigning for him actively and sharing this picture and talking about his contribution to the party in the region, and they were urging that the president should consider him because of the work that he's done at the TESCON level and in the community as far as the MPP's progress is concerned. And so that's what we established there, and this picture proves the point for many who had looked at it. And just to make the point, so we put this through the forensic software, and this tells you whether or not this picture has been doctored and is fake or not, and it shows that the chances of this is what we call the error level analysis, looking at the error levels to check, to give you a good sense of whether the picture has been faked. It hasn't been faked, and as the multiple sources have said. And then you come to Reverend Ikwa Boateng. Many of you possibly would have heard of her on Asase Radio, but also, doing her work in the ministry. But importantly, she comes to do with some pedigree when it comes to the Electoral Commission, right? Because she used to be a member of the United States Trade Advisory Committee to Africa, but also the Advisory Committee of the Electoral Commission of Ghana. So that is important. So she's done some work there. There hasn't been any particular concern about her appointment because, as I say, if you look at her pedigree and coming to this, she has some pedigree coming into this conversation and going on to the Electoral Commission's, as a member of the commission. I know some people have raised issues, but it's hard to pin anything on her. And the record speaks for itself. An advisory committee member of the EC already, and so why not a member? And the president believes she deserves to be there. And then there's Hajia Salima Ahmed Tijani. And again, we've seen, people have gone to dig into her background. Who is she married to? Is the person she's married to linked to the MPP? And many are already speculating a lot about, her affiliations and connections and who she's related to that have links in the MPP. But on the face of it, you see her pedigree. She's a banker with close to 2 decades. She's a senior remittance officer at the ADB. She is a member of the Chartered Institute of Bankers. And so she comes to that. Now, one of the things you need to note, though, is a constitutional provision that specifies what you need to qualify to be an Electoral Commission member, commissioner, or a member of the Electoral Commission. And all of them, they qualify. They qualify because in the appointment of this, it has to go through the Council of State, must advise if the president says he's done, and the president says they approved their nomination. So there's no constitutional question around this. And this is the point that I wanted to make to you. As far as constitutional provisions concerned, a chairperson, 2 chairpersons, and 4 members. And that's why they have been appointed. But the Constitution is very clear as to what you require to be there. And it simply says you cannot be a member or on the Electoral Commission if you do not qualify to be a member of Parliament, right? And so that is a key point. You can be there, and if you can, unless he is qualified to be elected as a member of Parliament. And that's a constitutional provision. And so you have to go back to what the constitutional provision says about being a member of Parliament and apply it to all of them. And when you do the check, you will see that there isn't, you can't go and fight this in court and win. But remember, the elections is about integrity. It's also about neutrality. It is also about questions about fairness and whether you're biased or not, and what the people perceive that to be, because that's what fuels the tension that we see going into elections. So the CDD's argument, for example, is if you have somebody like that who has an overt political history, affiliation with one particular political party, then all of a sudden you're setting up the EC to be in conflict with the opposition party. And that, and Mr. Brampa, the programs manager at CDD, makes a point that it is in the interest of, ensuring that the process, it seemed to be fair, that appointment is reconsidered. And we'll come to the conversation shortly. But the president made a very important point. Apart from this quote, the president says, though, it must as if the president knew this will come up. And he made a point, very instructive. I'll get my guests to chip in on that when I sit down. And he said that elections are not at all about the individuals who are on the commission. It's not at all about the chairperson, the deputy chairpersons, and the members. It's not about them. He says it's about the people who cast the ballot. It's not about the counting. It's not about those who sort out the ballot papers. And so, it's just not an issue, in essence, for the president, because it is a case of the voter and your exercising of your franchise, and not necessarily about the individuals, regardless of whether they are colored or not. It is a case of you going there and casting your ballot. That's the most important thing. I'll get my panelists to chip in. It's a bigger conversation than just this one. Tonight, the former President John Dramani Mahama had actually proposed now on the back of this controversy that if he comes into power, if he gets elected, he has proposed tonight, just a short while ago at the national briefing, that he will amend the constitutional provision and make the appointments to the Electoral Commission subject to parliamentary approval. And he believes that is his way of fixing the challenge over the years that we've seen anytime somebody is appointed to the Electoral Commission. We'll ask my guests whether they believe that is a way forward, subjecting our appointments to the Electoral Commission to parliamentary approval. And that, architecture itself will be constitutional and one that we need to look at. We'll come back and have a good conversation on this. Stay with me.